All right, my friends, hello again. Today is part 2 of this super fun video series all about ownership and what it looks like to really step into ownership and self-agency in terms of our healthcare, especially in these disconcerting, troubling times. Today, we're going to be talking all about eating habits. And I want to preface this conversation by letting you know that I am not by any means perfect. I don't prescribe to any one diet. I think everyone has to do what feels right for them. But I do have a couple of tips and tricks for you and things to ponder as you kind of take a look at your eating habits currently in terms of how your future self will be feeling once you implement some of these different practices and put some of these things into place. And a lot of times, I think some people feel a little crippled by the idea that, oh gosh, I need to change some eating habits, like it's this really big elephant that you kind of have to take on. So what I encourage you to do today, if you're watching this video or you're watching it in the future, think about one or two small little things that I mentioned or that you already honestly know deep down inside that you can do today to shift and just sort of move the needle a little bit at a time to really be able to help protect yourself and safeguard you and your family as we kind of move through this interesting next couple of weeks. I know a lot of us are in our homes. A lot of us have been stocking up on things in the pantry, or maybe you haven't, and you're just kind of like, wondering what to do and where to go. I'm going to give you some tips for how to do that today that are really manageable, that you can actually put into practice right away. So first off, I want to mention to you, in case you haven't heard me say this before, that 70% of your immune system is actually housed in the lining of your gut. So if we're talking that we have some issues with our gut health, or we're not quite feeding our cells in our guts the good nutritious food that they need to be having, then we could potentially see some compromisation of our immune system. So when we talk about wanting to bolster our immune system and protect our body, is honestly a really good place to start is truly the gut. Wash your hands, of course, and everything else that we're going to be talking about over the next week, but also to really be paying close attention to what we're putting in our body, because that directly affects our gut health. My mom always used to say growing up, garbage in, garbage out, right? So when we're eating a lot of junk food, I'm sure you've heard that saying before, we tend to feel kind of garbagey on the outside. And if you just pause for a moment to pay attention to your body and all the little winks and nods that it gives you from time to time, you'll start to notice what your body does and does not resonate with. For me, for example, I know that if I eat a lot of refined sugar or a lot of overly processed foods, I see it on my face and it tends to impact my mood. A lot of other people might have digestive discomfort or trouble sleeping, or maybe you feel like you have low energy or slower muscle recovery, right? So I encourage you to start just paying attention to how you feel as it directly relates to what you're eating, okay? So there are a few foods out there that are actually what we call immunosuppressors, and I'm just going to run through the list really briefly. These are going to be things you're going to want to be aware of, and I'm not saying you need to completely eradicate all of them from your diet, but how can you move the needle? How can you shift out of it just a little bit at a time to help your immune system stay strong during this time of environmental threats being very abundant, right? So one big one that's a huge immunosuppressor is refined sugar. So if you find yourself eating a lot of sugar, I know especially when you're stuck at home, that might be kind of what you gravitate towards, right? Any of these sugary sorts of foods, or maybe you're bored. I know that when I tend to feel kind of slumped in the afternoon and I need a little extra pick-me-up, what I really want to grab is either a second cup of coffee and put some sugar in it, or I want to have a piece of chocolate, right? So pay attention to sugar. That's going to definitely suppress the immune system. Any kind of processed food. So I mentioned on my class that I taught a couple of days ago, Prepared Over Panicked, which you can still find up on YouTube and on my Facebook as well. If your great-grandmother couldn't recognize and read the ingredients in a box or package of food as food, it's probably overly processed and something that you want to maybe avoid or start looking at limiting, okay? So when I was at the grocery store the other night, I was noticing that as I was kind of going through the aisles, and so many of them are totally wiped out. What's odd to me is a lot of the boxed macaroni and cheeses and these types of things were completely gone, but things like whole buckwheat and farro and lentils and canned beans even, those were still in total abundance. And while I'm not discounting the fact that, you know, boxed mac and cheese is really great to have on hand, especially when you have kiddos, but, you know, how can we sort of just shift a little bit to eating more of like whole foods, fewer processed foods, and still be able to feel really, really good and fill our tummies? And honestly, it's oftentimes less expensive, and it's going to be more readily available to us right now in your typical grocery store. Caffeine is actually an immunosuppressor as well. So if you're used to having multiple cups of coffee a day, or an energy drink or soda, or whatever that looks like for you, maybe see how you can tailor back to just 1 cup. I'm not, again, not saying you need to like completely get rid of coffee, because I know myself, and I know a lot of you mamas out there, your kids are home from school now. The thought of you like not being able to have your coffee in the morning might totally freak you out. So don't do that. You know, have your little cup to keep routine and to maintain that little feeling of cozy, but maybe just have the 1 cup to continue to bolster your immune system. Any kind of heavily saturated fats in terms of oils can also be immunosuppressants. So like vegetable oil, canola oil, peanut oil even. We want to maybe switch to some other healthier options to actually help support our immune system rather than to suppress it. So if you're used to cooking with vegetable oil, maybe try cooking with olive oil, avocado oil. Pumpkin seed oil is incredible. It's got lots of good healthy fats, coconut oil even. See how you can shift, so you don't have to completely change how you typically cook, but just shift a little bit so that you are helping your body. Alcohol is also an immunosuppressant, oftentimes because of the sugar content in there. So again, just be more mindful of that as you are home and we're kind of stuck inside. Some of us might be getting this cabin fever. Instead of 3 glasses of wine, maybe you have 2 or 1, whatever that looks like for you. But just consider kind of limiting that a little bit. And finally, simple carbohydrates. So if you're eating a lot of white rice, white bread, like crackers and things that don't have a whole lot of substance to them, again, you can still totally eat all of that. Still eat the rice and the bread and the crackers, but maybe shift out of it a little bit. There are things like crackers with seeds in them, right? Or breads that have more like multigrain with different types of seeds and nuts and things. That might be a better alternative for you. So again, some more immune boosting foods that you might want to add are definitely going to be healthy fats and oils. I highly recommend, if you're still going out to the grocery store and you're needing to stock up on a couple of things, I would grab some full fat canned coconut milk. You can do so much with that. You can make a curry with it. You can add it to soups and smoothies. It's high and really awesome healthy fats and some really good vitamins, and it's very shelf stable. You also want to be adding some fermented foods if at all possible. So that looks like sauerkraut, pickled things. You could even make your own kombucha if you're feeling brave enough to try that at home. Any kind of citrus fruits, which in a lot of places are actually becoming more in season now too, which is great. I picked up a whole bag of organic mandarin oranges the other day at the grocery store for like $3, and I think there's 12 or something in there. It was an awesome deal, and we're gonna be able to keep those for a long time. You could juice them, you could put them in a smoothie, eat them as a snack, give them to your kiddos. Citrus is really, really high in linalool. Linalool helps to promote healthy immune response as well as a good like mood booster, right? So lots of citrus. Lemon in your water in the morning is always a great option. Grapefruit, right? Maybe even experiment with like encouraging yourself to try a new fruit or vegetable during this interesting time. A lot of us are going to be cooking more at home than maybe we typically are used to. So this would be a really good opportunity and an invitation for you to challenge yourself to maybe try a new recipe or cook with something that you don't typically use. Greens, all the greens. So again, if you can't find fresh greens in your house, or you're trying to stock up so you have a long amount of time to just kind of stay hunkered down, grab some frozen greens. Again, that was not really empty at the grocery store when I went. The frozen pizzas were completely cleared out, bagel bites and all that stuff, but in terms of like frozen veggies, there was still an abundance to be had. So I picked up some frozen riced cauliflower. You can throw that in a smoothie if you don't want to cook it. I picked up lots of frozen peas and spinach, broccoli, green beans. These are all things that you can stock up on, and even if you don't consume them all over these next couple weeks, they'll be in your freezer for when you need them. They're great to add to soups and things like that. Throw it in a skillet with a little bit of pumpkin seed oil, and saute that up as your side. It's really, really great. Garlic and onion both have a lot of high antiviral properties to them, so I would buy quite a bit of that. I just bought a few heads of fresh garlic. I'm going to be making a fire cider. I'll post about that here in a little bit so that you can have that recipe as well. And then onion, again, you could chop that up really fine and add it to like an egg scramble, add it to some sort of like a pasta dish. There's so much that you can do with it and giving your body those extra immune boosting nutrients. And also, if you wanted to add a couple extra greens, I have some ideas. So I love greens powder. This is probably one of my favorite brands. This is Amazing Grass. You can grab this on Amazon. Super easy. You just mix it into water or any kind of juice or tea. Also consider grabbing some chlorophyll. Doesn't really taste like anything. It tastes kind of green, but you can add just a little bit to your water because you're getting more of the awesome green goodness into your gut, which is going to help with your immune system. So make sure you're eating the rainbow. If you're taking a look at your plate or you're looking at your meal plan for the week and there's a lot of beige foods, see how you can add some more color in there, okay? So see what you can maybe swap out for something that's a vegetable, maybe something new that your family hasn't ever tried or something you haven't tried in a while. The other thing I recommend stocking up on is some squash. So I saw a lot of like butternut squash, acorn squash that was just readily available. So I picked up a couple of those because you can turn those into soups really, really easily or roast them, and they make a super yummy side. They're also super great if you freeze them and throw them in your smoothies. So that's really fun too. Have some really good snacks on hand like nuts, dried fruits. See what else you can grab that's like not heavily processed, but that could be something really easy to eat. If you do feel like you're struggling with any kind of sugar cravings, I recommend using our Slim and Sassy Essential Oil Blend. It is a metabolic blend and it's really good for sugar cravings. My favorite way is honestly just to do a drop in the back of the hand and lick it off. You could add it to your water. You could take it in a veggie cap. Really good to kind of get rid of that sugar craving, which is awesome. And finally, make sure you're drinking a lot of water. So what's really interesting and I think very empowering about this particular cootie that we're dealing with is it cannot survive at high heat and or in the hydrochloric acid in your stomach. So if for some reason you do happen to get it somewhere in your mucous membranes, you want to make sure that we're continually flushing the body, because once we can get it down into our stomach, the hydrochloric acid can actually kill the germ. So making sure that you're drinking lots of water. I recommend half your body weight in ounces. Add your citrus essential oils if you have access to pure certified pure therapeutic grade essential oils to really help with the detoxification process as well. All right, y'all, hope you're having a wonderful day, that you're staying safe and healthy, and I will check in tomorrow with part 3 of this super fun video series. Talk soon. Bye.